welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for your support, subscribing and watching these videos. This one's coming at you from someone that's kept birds of prey since he was a teenager and exotic animals. Loads of you guys like me will know what I'm talking about, and it's really as well, it's for the people that really don't understand animals other than domestic animals, understand keeping them and see them very differently, anthropomorphisize. Those of you that don't have a closed mind and actually sort of say things out of genuine ignorance, stick around. I'll explain some things. I'll tell you what it's like from my point of view, from the animal's point of view. Facts based on first-hand long-term experience, not facts of opinion, parrot fashion passed along on social media. So of course, as Rick is himself, someone that really doesn't like keeping these kinds of animals or doesn't understand any form of hunting, himself says he's a protectionist, really not a conservationist. But as he himself says, your opinion can't beat my fact. It's as simple as that. Enjoy the rest of the video. Hopefully it'll be fun, informative, and a bit different to those that have late. We're here, by the way, enjoying the Nen, the River Nen, not far from where we live. Gorgeous. So I've been keeping birds of prey since I was in my mid-teens, and exotic animals and things all my life, I guess. But it was certainly keeping those birds of prey that started getting that familiar parrot fashion comment by sometimes, well, always by people that care, of course, but sometimes it's sort of genuine, other times it really is just tut for the sake of tut, having a narrow-minded view, and it's not going to be changed, and I'll put my fingers in my ears and go la la la, I won't be told any other way. For that kind of person, obviously, there's no point watching further. But if you're genuinely interested, these people started saying things like, oh, why is it chained down? Poor thing's chained down. Oh, you should let it go to be flying back in the wild where it belongs. Oh, well, look at its sad face. Look how sad it looks. Look at that poor thing. It just wants to fly and it can't. Oh, you put a bird in prison. Listen to that awful screeching, horrible sound it's making. It's so distressed. It's so distressed and sad. That kind of thing from the birds for sure. We'll talk about the fox in a bit, but that's a whole new level. But that's the sort of thing I've been listening to, and anyone that flies birds of prey, certainly commercially, at country fairs and shows, education, falconry centres, zoological places, they'll have all heard that many, many times. When I'm doing a show, when we're flying birds for people, the general public, one of the things I'll say quite often afterwards is, if you've got any questions, come and find me or one of the staff. We'll always answer, we're always on hand to speak to you guys. And I always say the questions that I'd like you to ask me the most are the negative questions. Those of you that have been saying to your friends, you're the ones, come and ask me. Come and tell me your concerns or your worries. Come and ask us. And we'll tell you, we'll give you the answer, why the bird's kept like that, why we do this, and at least then you have factual knowledge. You go away and make up your own mind. If you don't want your mind changing, you won't have your mind changed. But come and ask us why. And as I say to these people, everything we do is for the bird's welfare and benefit. Most often, and almost likely, never for our ease or benefit. So we could keep these birds in different ways than we do, maybe to make life easier for us. We could use equipment that would be quicker and easier for us, but we don't, because it could potentially have a negative impact on those animals. So the things that many people think is actually probably there for the welfare of the bird, nothing to do with what we want to do best or easiest. So on the theme of birds of prey, let's have a think about some of those regularly asked questions, those FAQs. So what do we look at there? So the commonest one would be, look at that poor thing, it's chained down. Well, I've had some birds that can untie their leashes, but so far I've never had the need to chain down a bird. The birds are tethered or they're in aviaries. And the irony of it is, here at Icarus Falconry, most of our birds are now in aviaries. Due to public opinion and the fact we're now open like a zoo at the weekends, we're open rather than just experience days where the birds are flying all the time. People can come and see the birds, and over the last couple of years I've worked quite hard to find a way to house those birds in aviaries, but now of course they're in prison. So let's look at them being told why. You get these stupid negative antis, these groups and associations that are levying to stop birds of prey being tethered, because their end game is, of course, for everyone not to keep pets, and that's a fact. But they're pseudo facts, and the pictures they put up, they're just ridiculous if you know anything about birds of prey or falconry or welfare of these birds. So why do we tether the birds? Well, the birds have been kept tethered for thousands of years. These are working birds whose job is to fly free. And falconry itself, their job is to fly and catch food for themselves and the falconer, as they have done for over 4,000 years. And humans, us, we quickly work out the best way of doing things. It doesn't really take that long, and often it can't be bettered. So we can make things move along easily by putting them on wheels, and to a greater extent, for hundreds and hundreds of years, the wheel hasn't been beaten. We quickly get something that works well. Birds of prey, they're trained to be trustworthy of the falconer. You have a bond of trust, and the bird quickly learns. And all our birds are captive bred, but this is equal for a wild taken bird. In the old days, when birds were taken from the wild, and still are in other parts of the world, the bird quickly learns that what the falconer offers, because the bird's not a team player, not really, it's a singleton in the wild, it quickly learns it's in its benefit. The falconer offers its shelter at night away from predators. Big eagle owls eat other birds of prey, for example. The bird works out that it's going to be safe from the weather, but what it really works out more than anything is that whatever happens, however good or bad it performs, it gets fed every single day. And for a predator, that is the biggest gift that could be bestowed upon it. Most of them die of starvation. Finding their food is the most ridiculous thing for them in the world. Just think about this. Just stop and think about you getting your next bit of food in your gob. You're probably going to open a packet, the fridge or the freezer. Imagine if you tried to put your hand on that bit of cheese and it stabbed you in the finger, ran off over your shoulder, ran up the stairs, and as you chased it, it dived out the window and streaked down the street and vanished. Imagine if everything you tried to put in your mouth did that. It either attacked you or slipped out your grasp and went faster than you to get away. That's every meal for a predator, more or less. Our birds quickly work out, doesn't matter how unsuccessful they are, they're not going to die. That other predator, the human, will always feed them. So when you say, why don't they fly away? Because they understand their life's much easier with us as a trained falconry bird, just like your life is easier the way you're living it, rather than stripping down naked, sharpening a pointy stick and going off to the Scottish Highlands or the deep rainforest with a pointy stick. You would die quickly because you're not capable of living like that. It's so incredibly hard. These birds are capable of living like that, but being wild and free is actually incredibly hard. And just like you, having a house, having constraints, but having everything gifted to you is much easier. Our birds are intelligent enough to work that out. So we don't chain them down, we tether them with incredibly thought out tethering systems that have been fine-tuned over thousands of years. Nowadays, for instance, I use braided man-made fibres rather than leather, but generally it's been fine-tuned over years to be safe for that bird. And this is what tethering offers a trained bird of prey. It can be micro-managed by the falconer. A nice sunny morning, the bird can be put out in the sunshine with a nice bath. It'll bath, watch the wheel go by. It can be put somewhere where it can have a quieter life or a more interesting life, depending on its state of mind at that time in its life, or the species of bird, or the individual. It can be micromanaged, but should it be coming very rainy on a very cold winter's afternoon, the bird can be moved into a sheltered area. The bath can be removed if it's going to be a hard frosty night by the afternoon, in case the bird stupidly, and they do, has a bath just before darkness in the winter when its feathers are going to freeze solid, because it doesn't have a forecast of what's going to happen. It thinks, oh, I fancy a bath right now. We can micromanage that. Tethering is, birds are kept tethered and not in aviaries, traditionally in falconry, because the bird has a bond of trust with you. It has a desire to be with you. The bird comes back to you because it understands it might get a free bit of food for coming back to you, but it's also going hunting with you. It's been taken and assisted to find its own food that it can chase. But then you put it in an aviary. Every time you walk past, the bird wants to be with you. flies into the mesh, grabs hold of the mesh with its feet like a parrot would, and then steadies itself with its wingtips and tail, snapping off all the tail tips and wing tips, not only make it look disgusting, diminishing its powers as an athlete and a predator. Tethered birds can't do that. If they come forward to you, they don't hit anything other than the nice soft grass, and they quickly learn, okay, I'll pop back, come on my perch, it's not time to go out yet. And the length of the leash is critical to that. So some of our customers say, well, why don't you have a leash 10 foot long? At least the poor things could fly a little bit, because they'll sprint 10 foot. A goshawk from 0 to 10 feet is moving quite quickly, and it's capable of breaking or dislocating its legs. Everything's measured, everything's worked out and fine-tuned to keep that bird in perfect health and perfect mind. Different heights of perches, different amount of shelter. Tethering is probably the best way to keep an individual falconry bird. A lot of ours are in aviaries. We have to go to great lengths so that you, the public, if you like, see those birds and don't go, oh, look, poor things are chained down. Makes my life easier in so much as dealing with the masses of the public. Now we open at weekends, and for public perception and for the public to feel happier. But then we go, oh, the poor thing's in prison. Because, of course, I've got to stop those birds flying at the mesh and destroying themselves. That's not on for a falconry bird. I want to see these birds looking perfect and flying well. So we'll often use a really tried and tested system, and that is a barred window, not a mesh, so that if they grab the bars, they slide down and they quickly stop doing it. And then we'll put a nice comfy perch underneath a window ledge internally, and the birds quickly learn, oh, if I want to get nearer, I'll come to the front and I'll land on the window ledge, nice and comfy, and I'll look through the bars, not through a mesh. But strangely, the bars, all of a sudden it becomes a prison. The public's fickle, and I'll talk to you more about that in a second. So that's why we tether them. Oh, look at that bird's face, it's so sad. It cannot move its face. Our black kites always, oh, look at them, they look so sad and unhappy. Look at their downturned faces. That's the face they were given. That's the face they evolved. They can't smile. They have a beak. Stop anthropomorphizing and putting what you perceive as a downturned mouth, a sad face like a child would draw. That's the face it was given. It has no bearing on its sadness or happiness. It cannot make its mouth droop more. It cannot smile. It has a fixed, hard beak. Anthropomorphizing, putting your opinions and feelings on that animal that has no such thing. My classic one, I turn up at school, I get my blacked out Hawk travel boxes. It keeps them really calm. They're nice and blacked out. They're not seeing the world whiz by at high speed. I get in the foyer, put my boxes in, I start signing in on the computer system at any given school, and I'm there before most of the staff to set up. And as the staff start coming in and clocking in, the barn owl, my imprinted barn owl I've had since she was 10 days old, I've worked with her for 13 years, she's making the only sounds a barn owl can make, a screeching sound. Only the tawny owl, and it takes two of them really, says twit twoo. No other owls say that, but we're all told that at school. So if you see an owl and you heard it at the same time say twit twoo, you'd probably go, ah, that's the sound owls make, how nice. But a barn owl can only screech, squeal, scream. And it's contact noise to me to say, hi Dave, don't forget I'm still in here, because she's hand-reared, she thinks I'm a mum, is a screeching sound, the sound the barn owl makes. I actually have teachers over 13 years go, huh, I'm not sure what's in there, but it's not happy, is it? And they've never met me. They don't know what's in the box. And they're actually talking to me like that. And I've said, but you've just said you don't know what's in there. It's not happy, is it? Listen to the sound of it. It's cruelty. What's in there? How ridiculous. Just analyse that. How ridiculous is that? And I usually say, well, it's a giant hissing tarantula, and that's the sound they make, and walk off. But they don't know what's in there. But if it was a canary in there, and it was singing that lovely melody that a canary sings, they would literally say, oh, what's in the box? Isn't it happy? The noises animals make have no necessary bearing on what you unknowingly think they're saying. A bald eagle screaming and squawking. That can sound cross, angry, sometimes it is, but cross, angry, unhappy, when it's actually entertaining itself or calling and talking to me. It screams and squawks. To us, horrible sounds, not a melodious musical. But don't forget the canary, singing so happily, is actually saying, get the F out of my territory. Any more canaries around here, frig off or I'll kill you. Or it's saying, oh, hi love, you look beautiful. Come over here, I've made a lovely nest. That's all it's saying. It's not singing because it's happy and to make you happy. Don't anthropomorphisize. Understand, learn about and study animals before you make rash judgments, often based on someone else's thoughts, actually, someone else's comments on a Facebook profile. Do your own research, look into these things. Don't be suckered in by these antis or other negative people. Learn about these things, please. So a real biggie is, poor thing, it should be free, flying free in the sky. It wants to fly and it's constrained. Well, again, do a little bit of research. Think about it, use your own brain. It gets to fly free, a falconry bird, most days, for much of the year. Some of our birds fly every single day, all year. Some of our birds get 3 or 4 months a year break where they just chill out in an aviary. They get to fly free, and they're free. Completely free, completely unrestrained. Often in good surroundings that would provide them an opportunity to live on their own. But they still choose to come back. And people sometimes say, but you've conditioned it from a youngster, knows no better. You've mentally imprisoned it because it doesn't think it can go free. Come on. I can take, if it was legal, like any other falconer, a completely wild bird. Let's look at a 4-year-old peregrine falcon. It's lived until right into its maturity. It knows how to hunt. It's the best of the best. It's the one that survived the first winter, gone on to breed probably. It doesn't need a human to help it survive. It knows that. It's done it. It's doing it. And yet, if it was legal, we could trap that bird, as has happened for thousands of years, and within a very few weeks, probably even 2 weeks for some falconers, that trap bird that thought we were going to eat it and is scared of us will turn around mentally and physically understand, this is great. And it'll be just as happy to come back to us. Anthropomorphizing, maybe it's not happy, maybe it just comes back because it understands the world. But it'll be just as happy to return and be tethered or put in a pen, an aviary, a free loft, as the captive bred bird does. They get the opportunity to be free, fly free, do their thing, but they still choose to come back. If I leave my golden eagle out and it starts to get dark, the gloaming, he feels nervous and worried. And he'll call to me, can you put me away for the night, please, where it's safer? Even those wild birds will still become perfect falconry birds given the opportunity. It's not because we've constrained their brains from babies and they don't understand the opportunity to be free. Do they want to fly free? This is a real big one for me. Oh, it wants to fly. Look at the weather, the sun's out, it's tethered, it's chained down, it wants to fly. Birds of prey don't want to fly. They fly to get away from bigger birds of prey. They fly primarily to catch their food, and they fly certain times to do courtship displays. They don't want to fly. And I can tell you, that's a fact. I've been flying these birds since I was about 16. If we fed all our birds at the Falconry Centre their day's food at 10 a.m, in the morning, and then we let them fly free on a lovely, breezy, but beautiful sunny day, just the right conditions, they might fly up to the nearest tree. They won't fly any further, and they won't fly again until tomorrow morning when their appetite kicks in and tells them we better go hunting and get some food. They don't want to fly. Flying is incredibly hard work. Just like running for us humans, you're bipedal. You've evolved to run and run and run. Most of us, in the UK for sure, and I would say America, most of us don't go running. We don't like running. Running hurts, it's uncomfortable, and that's what flying's like. Flying is harder than running. And for a predator that never knows when it's going to get fed again, flying is suicide in slow motion. While they're flying, they're burning calories, they're emptying their fuel tank, and they never know when or where the next fuel stop is. Slow suicide. They do not want to fly. And if you don't believe that opinion, based on facts I've learned, look into island populations of birds. Islands where there's no mammalian ground predators. On those islands, many species of birds lose their ability to fly. You've got the kiwi, you've got the kakapo in New Zealand, just to name two. A flightless parrot that lives on the forest floor because nothing robs its eggs or catches it until us humans took mammalian predators there. It evolved no need to fly. It can find food without flying, doesn't need to escape predators by flying. Look at the Galapagos Islands. Cormorants with little tiny silly Tyrannosaurus Rex withered wings because they don't need to fly from predators. They just jump into the sea, catch their food, nest on the rocks, don't need to fly far, don't need to escape predators. Hundreds of species of birds evolve to lose the ability to fly when they find themselves in a place they don't need to fly. Birds want to fly. Our birds of prey want to fly around in the sky as much as most of you want to go running and running and running. That's a fact. Don't anthropomorphisize. You might love the idea of flying. You've got the gift of running. Go and do that instead. Another really big one. Again, this is out of ignorance, really, I think. Again, don't forget, people say these things, they do care. They're just so misinformed and uneducated on the topic. So a big one is, poor things, they should be released back in the wild where they belong. That's a really ignorant one, certainly here in the UK. All our birds are captive bred. Many of the species we work with are not from the UK. They do not belong in the wild. Absolutely not. They're not from the wild and they don't belong back in the wild. In fact, to release non-native species into the wild is mostly illegal. It is illegal. It's stupid. It's cruel, mostly to the species, but more importantly, it can be devastating to the wild native species that belong there. I think a classic example for any naturalist in the UK was when Antis released mink from mink fur farms into the wild. A species from North America released en masse into British countryside. A predator. A mink is one of the most phenomenal all-terrain predators you could find in nature. They devastated the animals of our waterways. Mink are a semi-aquatic mammal. Absolutely devastated it. And otters here were at an all-time low. Otters actually kill mink. They don't like them in their territory. And now otters are really common in the UK, and they are. They're keeping the mink back in check. But the lovely water vole is the classic example. Almost made extinct because people released non-native mink into the wild because they didn't agree with farming animals for the fur. That's up to you. I eat bacon. I think pigs are incredibly intelligent, lovely animals. And if I had a pet pig, I probably would never eat bacon again. It's all in here. Don't put your thoughts and things onto other things that you know nothing about. So releasing birds of prey into the wild that don't belong in the wild, that aren't from the wild, that aren't from that part of the world, is not only cruel to those birds in many cases, it's actually stupidity and the worst kind of conservation you could ever get. And that's what I mean between a protectionist and a conservationist. A protectionist says, oh, that poor animal, that poor individual animal. A conservationist thinks, that poor species, that poor ecosystem, what do we need to do to manage things so those things flourish properly? Our birds are not from the wild. They don't belong in the wild, and yet they still get to be wild and free every single day, returning not only to us at the end of their flying free, wearing radio tracking equipment, because the actual responsibility is on us not to let them permanently escape forever and possibly cause mischief in the wild. I think summing up, for anyone that keeps birds of prey, this is the classic. This is the classic. It is someone looking at a tethered bird, happily tethered, on a really good tethering system. Maybe it's just had its flying and its food for the day. Now it's sunbathing. I can hear a baby. And they stand there and go, that's cruel. You've tied it down. That's cruel. And this is why it's classic. The amount of people that have said that over the years whilst holding their dog constrained around its neck on a lead, constrained around its neck, pulling so much it's strangling itself. It's not even a trained dog. It's strangling itself because they've wrapped collars around its neck, and they're saying, that poor bird. And there's the bird, totally relaxed, well trained and happy. We are crazy things as humans. This could run and run, just about the falconry alone and things I've learned and the things people say, but the video's got way too long. So keep an eye out for part 2, keeping exotic animals, along a similar line, but different. And we'll discuss a little bit more in that, why we keep these birds of prey, why we keep animals, should we or shouldn't we, and so on. But we're going to clip that out into part 2. For now, thanks for staying tuned, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't. Comment below, anything you like. Guys, you're making this channel what it is. The content is endless due to my life. It will keep coming out. Hopefully you enjoy the variety. If a video's not quite for you, stay tuned, subscribe, click on the bell notification and see what comes next. Really appreciate your support. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.